let's debunk the lie. There's a lie happening right now. You probably read it earlier today. If you were scrolling up there, scrolling down there, you might have just seen a lie that content marketers have preached at the top of their lungs for way too long that needs to be thrown in the trash and lit on fire. And that is the idea that content marketing is just about content. That if you create content, the world will be yours. Content marketing is not just content. You actually have to market the content that you are creating. In this video, I'm going to share with you a simple framework that will help fix a leak that is probably happening in your business, that might fix the issues that you're having with your agency, that might fix the issues that you're having with your marketing team in general. Let's get into it. This is what I like to call the content growth framework. A model that, if applied to any business, can drive ridiculous returns. And I've seen it happen with some of the biggest brands in the world. We've applied this methodology to take organizations that were generating 50,000 visits a month all the way through to 250. Folks, this works. Let's talk through it. Most brands have traditionally focused on creation. They focus on writing and creating blog posts, creating video content, creating podcasts, ebooks, all of the different things, social posts. They're producing all of these different things. They get into this habit of thinking that if they create something, the world will be theirs. If they write a blog post, they're going to rank and Google's going to reward them with a ton of traffic. And we've all seen over the last few months that this is not true. So many agencies have taken tons of dollars from their clients just producing more and more content. It is a massive mistake. Instead of just getting into this habit of producing content, we need to, as an industry, recognize that it's a two-word industry: content marketing. You have to market the content, and you have to do research to understand the content that you create. So where do you go to do this research? You're looking at the start with your audience. You're looking at your customers. You're understanding their habits, their behaviors. You're looking at the competitors to understand what they're bidding on, what keywords they're going after, all of those different things. But you're also looking at the media habits of your audience. What are they consuming? Are they consuming newsletters? Are they reading content from a certain blog? What podcasts are they using? You can use tools like SparkToro or Audience to better understand these different things about your audience. When you do that, it helps you get the insight around the channels that your audience is spending time on and what I call content market fit. Content market fit is when you know your audience enough to know that every single time you press publish on a piece of content, that content is gonna resonate with them. The only way to do that is to truly know your audience. So you also wanna do what we like to call community research. So we go into communities in cybersecurity, we go into communities in engineering, in development, in sales, in marketing, depending on our audience and our customers, clients. We go into these spaces to understand what stories are getting the most upvotes, what stories are generating the most backlinks. All of these things are indicators for us around the stories that we should create. Now, after you do all that research, something magical happens. For us, this is where we now know what content is going to resonate with our customers. But we also know what channels they're spending time on. So we know what social media channels they're on. We know what newsletters they're listening to. We know what podcasts they're listening to. We know all of the communities that they're in, so we can distribute the content there. We know what habits they have. We know what podcasts they listen to, so we can sponsor it. We can get their team as guests on that podcast. This is all now possible. And for most agencies, they don't do either of those. It's just create. But for the best brands, for the best organizations, they're tapping into research to figure out what to create. And then once they create it, they're distributing those stories on the channels where their audience is spending time. They're running paid media ads. They're doing remarketing. They're doing retargeting. They're doing all of these things because they know that by doing those things, they're going to be able to tap into that content market fit. Now, if you do just that, honestly, you're gonna be ahead of the game. But what I want to encourage you to do is to not just go through this cycle and then call it quits. I want you to go back to the pieces of content that you created 2 months ago, a quarter ago, a year ago, and optimize it for CRO, optimize it for SEO, optimize it for GEO. What is that? Conversion rate optimization, search engine optimization, and generative engine optimization. You want to optimize your content for the ways in which your audience is going to discover the stories that you created, and you're not just going to do it once, you're going to do it constantly. Folks, this framework can fundamentally change the way in which you're driving ROI out of your content. So embrace it. Research your audience, create content that they want, distribute it relentlessly, and then optimize it to ensure that the old content that you invested in continues to drive ROI for years to come.